The night doesn't ask your permission before it becomes a mirror. It simply waits, quietly, patiently, until you notice what you've been avoiding. Because there is a moment, a thin, trembling moment, when you realize your life is not heavy, your life is not stuck, your life is not just how it is. Those are names you've given a room you've been sitting in too long. And tonight, if you're willing to be honest, you can feel it. The air of that room has started to suffocate you, not because the world is cruel, but because your own soul has outgrown the chair you keep returning to. There is a promise hidden inside this message, and you won't fully understand it until the final breath of these words, when something in you clicks, not like motivation, not like inspiration, but like recognition, as if you've been searching for a door your whole life, and suddenly you remember you were born holding the key. Now listen carefully. Some teachings feel sweet, comforting, gentle. This one feels like standing at the edge of yourself. Not physically dangerous, no, yet dangerous to the version of you that relies on logic as a shield. Dangerous to the identity that would rather explain why it can't than discover that it can. Because once you experience this, the old excuses will feel like children's toys in your hands, small, flimsy, embarrassing, and you might not go back. That's why most people don't persist. They taste the edge of freedom, feel their inner world begin to loosen, and then rush back into the familiar prison, because at least the prison has furniture they recognize. But if you stay, if you keep listening, you'll understand something that shakes the foundation of every fear you've ever called real. Your consciousness is not welded to the life you're living. It never was. It only feels that way because you've been loyal to one state for so long, you started to believe loyalty was destiny. And now, we begin. Before anything else, let me offer you a small doorway, something simple you can do without thinking, without effort, without performance. Not for me, for you, because a decision becomes real the moment you speak it. So right here, quietly, as a vow to yourself, leave a comment with your answer to this. Where do I belong now? Just a few words, a place, a state, a feeling, a truth. Not because you need permission, because when you name it, you stop pretending you don't want it. And the moment you stop pretending, the inner world starts moving. You've heard people speak about imagination as if it's a cute hobby, as if it's a mental game, as if it's a soothing technique for people who can't handle reality. But what if imagination isn't pretending? What if imagination is location? What if the difference between the life you're living and the life you ache for isn't time, isn't luck, isn't privilege, but a coordinate, not on a map, in consciousness? And if consciousness has coordinates, then consciousness can move. Not metaphorically, not someday, tonight. Most methods people try are like staring through a window. They sit in their current chair and daydream about another life, like looking at distant mountains from a cramped apartment. They whisper affirmations while their body stiffens with doubt. They visualize while secretly checking whether it's working, which is just another way of confessing they don't believe. And they stay where they are. They imagine wealth from poverty. They imagine love from loneliness. They imagine peace from panic. They are always over there in thought, but never there in being. And the world keeps agreeing with the being, because the world is not responding to your wishes. The world is responding to where you live inwardly. So here is the beginning, simple enough to offend the sophisticated, subtle enough to terrify the unprepared. You will create two physical points, two places your senses can understand, two chairs, two corners, Two rooms if you have them. One where you are now, and one out of sight, separated enough that you cannot casually glance and merge the two into one mental blur. The separation matters because your old self loves loopholes. Your old self will try to keep control by turning this into just imagining. No, this is not about imagining something from where you are. This is about being there while you are here. It is about discovering the strangest and most liberating truth. Your body is not the ruler of your reality. It is a participant. The ruler is awareness. Sit in the first chair. Close your eyes. Become intimate with the present, not by judging it, not by resisting it, but by feeling it. The weight of your body, the pressure behind your shoulders, the sound in the room, the temperature against your skin. This is your current state, your current position. And now, without opening your eyes, shift. Not by picturing the other chair like a photograph, by transferring your sense of I am into it. As if the center of you, your awareness, slides from one coordinate to another. Feel the second chair. Feel the air of that other space. Let the imagination become tactile, not visual. Let it be physical in feeling. The room has its own atmosphere, its own density, its own sound. Let it surround you. Let it be here. Stay there for a few seconds. Then return to the first chair. Then go again. Back and forth like a pendulum that is learning it isn't chained. Like a traveler who keeps stepping through a doorway to prove the doorway is real. And at first, it may feel silly. That's normal, because your logic will shout, "This is pretend!" But logic has one job, to protect the known. Logic will always call freedom unreal until freedom becomes familiar. Persist, because something begins to happen, not dramatic at first, not fireworks, but a loosening, like ice melting around a trapped thread, like a knot untangling in the center of your chest. And then, one day, you feel it, not as a thought, as a shift, a flicker, a quiet, undeniable relocation of you. And if you've never felt that before, it can be unsettling, because it exposes something you were taught to deny. You are not confined to where your body sits. You are confined to where your identity rests. This is why the exercise matters. It isn't about chairs. It's about proof. Proof that awareness moves. And if awareness moves, then the life you want is not something you chase. It is something you occupy. This is where the modern mind resists, because modern life trains you to worship external evidence, to believe only what is visible, to call the unseen fake, as if reality begins at the surface. But the deepest truth is the opposite. The visible is the echo, the unseen is the cause. You don't wait for the world to change so you can feel different. You move inwardly, and the world rearranges itself to match your new location. And this is where you begin to understand the first great secret. Your problem was never the problem. The problem was the state you kept calling me. You've been trying to fix the mirror while refusing to move the face. You've been trying to fight circumstances while sleeping in the identity that creates them. A person who feels unwanted will interpret everything as rejection. A person who feels poor will see scarcity in every corner. A person who feels trapped will find proof of limitation everywhere. Not because the world is out to get them, because reality is faithful. It reflects the position of consciousness. So the exercise is the simplest rebellion you can commit against your old self, because it teaches your awareness a new habit, relocation. And once that habit becomes natural, you can begin to relocate to something larger than a chair. You can relocate to a state, to a life, to a version of you that already exists, whole, certain, free. But you must understand what destroys most people here. They want proof first. They want a sign before they move. They want permission before they claim. They want to keep one foot in the old life just in case. And that is the precise reason nothing changes. You cannot live in two inner places at once. You can't be in I am wealthy and I'm afraid I won't make rent simultaneously and expect the world to choose the first. The world will choose what you return to, because returning is loyalty, and loyalty is creation. So the iron law is not complicated. It is not mystical. It is not poetic. It is brutal in its simplicity. What you persist in solidifies. Not what you try once, not what you flirt with on your best day, what you persist in. And here is where you must become honest about yourself. Do you have the courage to feel foolish for a few days so you can become free for the rest of your life? Because the new state will feel unfamiliar at first, and the unfamiliar often feels like danger to the nervous system. You might notice resistance around day 2 or day 3, not because you're failing, but because you're succeeding. The old self will throw tantrums. It will summon doubts like lawyers. It will bring up your past like a prosecutor. It will whisper, "Who do you think you are?" And that whisper is the sound of a cage rattling. It is the sound of an identity realizing it might lose you. If this message stirs you, if it feels like it's pressing on a door inside your chest, consider this. Share it with one person you love quietly, not as a promotion, just as an instinct. Because sometimes the people we care about don't need advice, they need remembrance. And your small act of sharing can be the spark that helps them breathe again. Now let's go deeper. When awareness becomes loose, something changes in the way you relate to space itself. You stop feeling like life is happening to you. You start feeling like life is happening from you. You begin to notice that what you call reality is simply the most consistent story your consciousness has been telling. And if you can change location inside, you can change story. But here's the crucial distinction. There is a difference between imagining from your current state and imagining as the new state. Most people imagine from the old chair. They decorate their prison. They paint the walls with affirmations and call it transformation. But the inner posture remains the same: longing, striving, waiting. And longing is confession. It says, "I do not have it." So the world responds faithfully, "Then you do not." To occupy the new state is different. Occupying is not wishing. Occupying is not hoping. Occupying is an inner arrival. It is the quiet certainty of someone who already stands on the other side. And the chairs train this. Because when you shift to the second chair, you're not begging to be there. You're not asking for entry. You're simply there. For 10 seconds, you practice being a person for whom that location is natural. Then you return. Then you go again. And eventually, you reach a moment where both feel equally real, where the mind can no longer claim one is real and the other is fake. And at that moment, a terrifying possibility opens. If both are real in consciousness, then what else have you accepted as fixed only because you've never practiced moving? Your identity, your bank account story, your relationship history, your health narrative, your sense of worth, all of it. Chairs you've been sitting in too long. Now here comes a hook, listen. There is a reason the second chair sometimes feels like home the first time you truly feel it. Not because it's new, because it's remembered. You have mistaken familiarity for truth, but sometimes the deepest truth feels like a place you once lived before you forgot your own name. And when you touch it, something in you begins to cry without sadness. It is the body recognizing freedom. It is the soul recognizing itself. That's why people shake sometimes. That's why the mind panics. Because the old self realizes this is not a technique, this is an exit. And here is the question that will haunt you in the best way. What if the life you want isn't ahead of you, but beside you, like another room you've never dared to enter? Now let's talk about the bridge. Because the modern mind wants mechanisms. It wants to know how. It wants steps, timelines, guarantees. But the bridge of incidents, those strange, ordinary, perfectly timed events, does not appear because you understand it. It appears because you occupy the end. You shift inwardly, and life rearranges itself outwardly with a precision that looks like luck to the untrained eye. Not because the universe rewards you, because reality reflects you. Think of it like this. Consciousness is the projector. Circumstances are the screen. You can punch the screen all day and nothing changes in the film. But change the reel, change the state, and the screen must display what it is given. So when you relocate inwardly, you do not make things happen. You become the person for whom they are happening. And the world begins to supply the evidence because evidence is secondary. This is where many people sabotage themselves. They occupy the new state for a moment, maybe after meditation, maybe after a talk, maybe after a burst of hope, and then they go check the screen. They check the phone, they check the bank, they check the circumstances. And the moment they react, they confess where they truly live. They step out of the second chair and sit back down in the first. Then they say, "It doesn't work." But what they mean is, "I didn't stay." Persisting is not forcing. Persisting is loyalty. Loyalty to the unseen reality until it becomes the seen reality. And loyalty is an identity. This is why the exercise is not about effort. It's about training the inner body. You have a physical body that has been trained by habit. You also have an inner body, your sense of self, that has been trained by repetition. If your inner body has repeated, "I am not chosen" for years, it will feel weird to inhabit, "I am adored." If your inner body has repeated, "I never have enough," it will feel foreign to inhabit, "I am provided for." And the old pattern will pull you back like gravity. Not because it's true, because it's practiced. So you do not battle the old state with anger. You out-practice it. You outlive it. You outstay it. And in the beginning, staying might look like this. You occupy the new state in the morning. Then by noon, the world triggers you. Someone says something. A bill arrives. A memory rises. And you feel yourself slipping back into the old chair. Now, the old way would be to panic and call yourself a failure. The new way is softer and stronger. You notice, you return. You sit again in the second chair, not physically, internally. You go back to the inner location of the wish fulfilled, and you do it again and again until returning becomes your new reflex. That is mastery, not never falling out, but refusing to live out. And this is where I want to invite you, very naturally, very simply, into something practical if you feel the pull. There is a 21-day challenge waiting for you in the description or pinned comment, designed to help you build this as a daily identity, not a passing mood. If your heart knows it's time to stop drifting and start choosing, it's there. And now, back into the journey. Because there is another layer to this. The chairs teach movement, but the real destination is not a room, it's a self. One chair holds the identity you've been rehearsing. The other holds the identity you've been postponing. And you've been postponing it not because you don't deserve it, but because you haven't practiced being it long enough for it to feel normal. So let's talk about normal. Normal is not truth. Normal is repetition. Normal is what you have tolerated repeatedly until it stops shocking you. Some people have normalized loneliness. They normalize being overlooked. They normalize stress. They normalize barely surviving. They call it life, as if life is supposed to feel like a slow drowning. But the moment you begin to relocate consciousness, your normal starts to break. And the breaking can feel like discomfort, because comfort is not always peace. Comfort is often familiarity, and familiarity can be a cage with soft pillows. So if you feel uneasy as you practice this, if you feel the mind trying to drag you back, don't interpret that as a sign to stop. Interpret it as proof the door is opening. There is a test that reveals whether you have truly occupied the new state. Your inner geography changes. If you move inwardly to a new place, the old place should start to feel distant, not hated, just irrelevant, like yesterday's room, like a hotel you stayed in once. You can still remember it, but it no longer feels like home. And when this happens, something strange occurs. Your current circumstances begin to feel like they belong to someone else. You look at your old patterns and think, "Who was that?" Not with shame, with wonder, as if you are waking up from a dream you once defended. This is when the bridge begins to assemble, because the outer world cannot remain loyal to an inner shift that has become stable. It must reorganize. It must produce new conversations, new invitations, new ideas, new chances, new timing. It must, because it has no choice. Your consciousness is the command. Reality is the obedience. But there is one more secret hidden inside this entire teaching, something that is almost too simple for the intellect, and that's why it's so powerful. You are not traveling to the second chair. You are remembering you were never truly in the first. The first chair is the story. The second chair is the source. You fell asleep believing the story was you. Now you are waking up as the source. That's why the shift feels like relief. Not because you finally get something, because you finally return to something. The longing you felt for your dream life isn't a hunger for the future. It's homesickness for the real. And when you finally occupy it, not as hope, but as identity, the world begins to feel like it is catching up to you, which it is, because creation is not being made. Creation is being selected. States are already here. Versions of you already exist. Lives already exist in consciousness like rooms in an infinite mansion. And you are not begging the mansion to build another room. You are choosing which room you call mine. Now listen. What if the version of you you're trying to become is not being created, but waiting silently for the moment you stop asking for permission to be them? So how do you stop asking? You stop negotiating with your old identity. You stop explaining. You stop pleading with the world. And you practice a holy stubbornness. I am already there. Not as a chant, as residence. And residence has signs. When you live in the new state, you don't obsess over when it will arrive, because you don't obsess over what you already have. You don't chase proof. You become proof. You begin to speak differently, not because you're performing confidence, but because the inner air you're breathing has changed. You begin to make choices that match the new self, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. You begin to treat yourself as someone worth keeping promises to. And yes, the world might still show you echoes of the old state for a little while. That's normal. The screen takes a moment to update when the real changes. But if you persist, those echoes fade. And something else appears. Opportunities that feel like answers to questions you never spoke aloud. People who say the exact sentence you needed. A sudden opening, a surprising invitation, a chain of ordinary events that, when traced backward, reveals an intelligence moving through your life. That intelligence is not outside of you. It is you, deeper than personality, deeper than history, the operant power. And now, the final layer of the promise from the beginning. You've been taught to think of yourself as a person moving through a world. But what if you are consciousness moving through states? A traveler not of geography but of identity. And if that's true, then your circumstances are not walls. They are scenery. They are props in the room you've been occupying. And if you can move from chair 1 to chair 2, you can move from I am not enough to I am chosen, from I always lose to I am favored, from I never get out to I am free. Here is the part that separates the ones who dabble from the ones who transform. They don't wait until they feel perfect. They don't wait until doubt disappears. They don't wait until the world approves. They practice the relocation anyway. They move even with trembling, because trembling is not a sign of weakness. It is the nervous system learning a new truth. And the new truth is this: you do not manifest what you want, you manifest what you are willing to be. So tonight, whether you actually place 2 chairs or you simply understand what the chairs represent, make it real. Give your inner self a second location, a second identity, a second home, and then return to it, again and again. Not with strain, with devotion. And if you fall out tomorrow, return. If you fall out next week, return. If you fall out 100 times, return 101. Because the person you are becoming is not fragile. They are inevitable, if you persist. Now, as we approach the final moments, remember the promise I made at the beginning. There is a recognition waiting for you. Here it is. The new you is not new. It is original. It is the self beneath the story. It is the version of you that exists before fear, before conditioning, before disappointment taught you to shrink your desires into something realistic. Realistic is often just a polite word for wounded. And you were not born to be realistic. You were born to be awake. So when you practice relocation, you are not forcing the universe. You are aligning with truth. You are stepping into the room where your fulfilled life is already natural. And once you live there inwardly, once you remain there long enough, the outer world will begin to mirror it because it cannot do anything else. That's the law. Not a belief, a law. And now, one last gentle whisper, because I don't want this to end like a performance, but like a continuation of a path. If this frequency feels like home to you, if you want to keep walking in this kind of awareness, then subscribe, not as a button, but as a decision to remain aligned with the truth you felt here. A decision to keep returning to the second chair until it becomes the only chair you ever recognize as you. Because the real ending is not closure. The real ending is expansion. And the most powerful thing you can do after these words is not to admire them, it is to move. Close your eyes. Feel the first chair, then feel the second. And when you feel that quiet shift, when the inner air changes, hold it, not tightly, faithfully, as if you're finally sitting where you've always belonged. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it, not outside but inside, a door opening, a life responding, a self remembering, and the world beginning to catch up.